Hello everybody, once again I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorvalachan, and today will be, for temporarily, the last video for Torg Eternity reviews. I still got Aurora and Pan Pacifica. When those are released, I will be able to do reviews on those, but they haven't been released yet, so I don't have that information fully, and so I can't make a review on something that I don't have. What I want to do today is kind of my thoughts on Torg Eternity, and kind of wanting to do, this is my Infiniverse Exchange product, but again, remind people that there's the Infiniverse Exchange out there. Full disclosure, yes, every time anybody buys this, I get paid half of what you pay. Basically, half goes to me, a quarter goes to Ulysses Spiel, and a quarter goes to Drive Through RPG. So, full disclosure, unlike my other things like Tharcold, which I participated in but got paid a payment based off of my work, a one-time payment, this is anytime it's sold, I get a royalty off of it. So that is my full disclosure. I'm not trying to be sneaky and I'll tell people to buy this and then I'll get paid. No, I'm telling you, if you buy this, I will get paid. If you don't buy it, fine, you don't have to. I'm not saying you have to, but there are many products out there on the Infiniverse Exchange. Mars decided to join us, and so there's lots of smaller or mid-ranged items, lots of different prices, different things from all on how to make products on the Infiniverse Exchange. There are things that help with adding new perks or cosm cards, or new adventures to go on, new settings, new world laws, new world organizations, things like that. Mine kind of, the purpose of mine is when Torg Eternity first came out, it was just its basic core book. And I wanted to add things to it that I thought were important in Torg that weren't in the main book, that possibly would come out in source books, that then after they came out, I could individually look at them and determine if that fit my concept of what old Torg was. So I added things because the core book doesn't really get into weird science. It doesn't get into certain aspects of other things like the Akashans, space gods, and things like that. So they were in my Cosmverse, and I had players that played that stuff, or they might experience NPCs with that stuff. So I wanted to get that stuff out as soon as possible to people. So this is a 125 or 122 page book. It's rather thick. It took me about 3 months to write it and put everything together, and I did all the non-maps are my original artwork based off of models that I bought through mostly through 3D programs like Poser and DAS 3D to be fully things. So it's not like I created these completely from scratch 3D wise, but it's my own art that I compiled together. So having said that, there's lots of information on the Infiniverse Exchange. If you're curious in Torg and you got the core book and you get source books and you still want more, look at the Infiniverse Exchange on Drive Through RPG. There is a lot of information out there that you can purchase to help your game. So that's one thing. The other thing I want to talk about is using these things to make Torg your own, which I keep saying, make Torg your own. It's canon. Every Game Master's table, every Game Master's Cosmverse is canon. There's the official, and then separately there's the canon. The official is one Cosmverse and how that Cosmverse and its meta plot is going along. Every other Cosmverse can be different. You can use different rules. You can use different realities. In my own, basically, my PCs and original Torg, my players, they failed at a few things that in most realms the people succeeded. Because I didn't want to handhold my players and point them in the right direction. I let them make their own choices on what to do. And sometimes they stopped a little bit short. So Azteca is a thing. The Aztec Empire came out from High Lord of Earth adventure. So I have rules for Azteca in here. The Akashans kind of failed in their entry, so it's not quite as bad as Torg Eternity, which are pretty much obliterated, but it isn't as easy as original Torg, where they came down and settled and made their own little weird realm with reality trees. So it's somewhere kind of in between that. But I have rules for Akashan and the client races of the Star Sphere. Also, I kept living land separate from what old Torg had as the land below. I had it in the middle of Africa called the Lost Land. So it's not underground, it's above ground, but it's a weird non-stele bounded system. Originally, I really liked the concept of having Kernod still around. So in the Paraverse, as it starts, Kernod is still around and had invaded Russia. He wasn't repelled completely like in old Torg, but it's not quite the same as a new Torg. I will not advance the plot line because I think a lot of times when a meta plot is advanced, game masters and players, like game masters, are afraid to go different than official in how the meta plot of the game is going, and players a lot of times want it to go that way, so that new books that come out, they can easily say, oh, we're going that way, so I can get this new perk, I can get this, I can get this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. I wanted to present something of here's the situation, and I, as the creator of this, will never tell you how in my world it goes out written. Now, if you want to discuss it with me, I'll tell you how things have gone, and even in these reviews, I've talked about certain things that have happened, but written on paper and or written on computer, published to be bought, I will not advance that because I want each game master to be able to, here's the setting as it starts, and you show how it unfolds in your own Cosmverse. So certain things like Kernod is still around in the Paraverse, and if you want to keep him, you can keep him. Now, if you like what is done in Torg Eternity with a 3-way civil war, or a 4-way civil war, or a 2-way civil war, feel free to change it. I set up just a setting. Even in Torg Eternity, it's set up as a setting and you can change it. I just wanted to kind of make that clear cut. I have various rule options that I have used. Now, in the 3 years of playing since I wrote this, certain ones have worked very, very well, and other ones are kind of meh. So once all the Cosms are released, I do plan to go back through this and change it so that those meh things, those things that I thought that I enjoyed from Torg Eternity, those things that seemed cool from from original Torg. So there were concepts that I was really all for in original Torg, and when Torg Eternity came out and did not have those, I was like, I miss that. So I made rules for that and added them to the Paraverse. But as I've game mastered in Torg Eternity main core rules, I realized they weren't really needed. Some of the things that I offered as optional flavors, there is a lot of flavors, I call them magic flavors or mystic flavors, because in my mind, mystic can mean magic, psionics, and miracles. So if I want to talk about all of them, I just say mystic, and then it's understood it applies to all 3 of those subsystems. I wanted mystic flavors based off of realms, like how it was in Old Torg. Old Torg, each realm could have something that was a little bit, their magics were all a little bit different. The base mechanics were the same, but they were all a little bit different. I introduced in Torg Eternity, I wanted that. I didn't like the blandness. But when I offered that as optionals, because I didn't want to force it on my players, but I offered these options of flavor, a couple of players used it a few times, and then they just didn't after that. And I don't know if they forgot it, because every once in a while I'll say, hey, remember you have flavors. They just don't use them. It's not useful. So it might be something that instead of being a core part that's optional for, when I say optional, I don't mean necessarily an optional rule. I mean a rule that's in effect, but it's optional to use it. So I might take that and just make it a complete optional rule. So certain things like that. Blast radius, I went very detailed into grid-based combat. For some reason, my party, my group, that has played Torg for close to 25 years, original Torg, that entirely was theater of the mind, completely. never had a grid-based combat system. And then when we went to Torg Eternity, they demanded a grid-based combat, so they knew how far things were, and they could do tactics, and they wanted that. And almost all the rules of Torg Eternity work very, very well with grid-based combat, but Blast Radius don't. Blast Radius are completely theater of the mind the way the rules are in Torg Eternity, and that is something that is absolutely needed to understand on a grid. So I came up with rules. They seem to work, and after play testing it for a while, they seem to work. I included those in here, but over time I realized that they weren't working as well as they did. So over the course of about 2 years, I was tweaking things to get it so that the area of effect was affecting it more like how the rules were written instead of how I was visualizing that it would be. So over the course that has changed. So in the update, I will update like the blast radiuses and what the templates look like, how big they are, etc. for those rules, because I've slowly over time perfected things, at least for my campaign. So when I re-release my new version of the Paraverse, which won't be a separate product, so if you bought this version, when it gets updated, which will be probably at least another year or two, because I want all the core source books out before I publish that. But it will be a massive update. It will be a massive rules update, using my 3 years, probably by that time 4 to 5 years of game mastering Torg Eternity to optional rules that will work very, very well for people. Also, being a freelance author, I have a little inside knowledge on certain things and how they work, so I'll be able to tinker with things better. And again, everything's optional. You don't have to pick this. And I'm using this as an example because it does include new perks. It includes new mystical abilities, spells, miracles, psionic powers, new mechanics, basically new setting ideas. It includes something for everybody is kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted this to be a really good supplement, kind of like in D&D when you have your main 3 books and then they come out with a campaign setting like either Eberron or Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance. Boom, you have the core books and then you have the setting companion, whether it was old school box sets or new school hardbacks, whatever. You got a boom, here's the setting and here's the tweaks of the main. So that's what I wanted, but you can always go in to this or other products and pick and choose what you want. You don't have to use the setting if you don't want to use the setting. If you're just looking for some new spells and miracles, psychic powers, maybe a few rule alterations, you can do that. You can pick this apart. There's some new gear in it, so if you just want to use new gear, you can do that. You don't have to choose everything in any product. Just choose what you want. Let your players know what is available, which is important. Always get with your players. Don't have surprises with stuff that's is intricate and needed for the core your core Cosmverse. Basically, that's what I just want to say. I want to say there's the Infiniverse Exchange out there. It is a cool program that allows fans and game masters and people that have read Torg Eternity and want to help promote Torg Eternity, and we earn a little bit. It's not anything close to I could leave my day job. When it first came out and there was very few products, I'll say it, I was generating like $100 a month. Now it's more like $100 a year, if not less, just because there's so many more products and people who want this have already bought it. So it's that type of thing. Yeah, I did it not to make money. I did it I use resources and time, so it helps me recoup the money that I put into it. But it's something that I wanted to offer as a choice to show you don't have to go old Torg completely. You don't have to go new Torg completely. My setting is kind of a mix. the mechanics that I present give an old Torg flavor to Torg Eternity in certain ways, like cyber psychosis and those magic or those mystic flavors. It's not using the old rules; it's bringing them in a way to use the Torg Eternity rules. But it's just showing that make Torg your own, and that's my. If you've watched any of my videos, reviews for Torg and Torg Eternity, and you watch any future reviews for any game system, my whole thing is make it your own. Don't feel constrained by what is official or what is canon. And especially in Torg, where it is canon when people and game masters and tables diversify and aren't the same clones as everybody else. So Infiniverse Exchange. Again, I will mention Torganized Play. Torganized Play pretty much follows Torg Eternity rules except for character advancement. They don't have the every character is at the same level. Otherwise, you might play once and come back 4 months later and they're like, hey, everybody's at 200 experience. So you just get the experience for the adventures that you go on. I think it works. I think I've said it works well and perfect in old Torg, and in Torg Eternity, at least from what I've been playing as a player for adventures now. So I got 20 XP, and I know I'm playing with people that have probably 40 to 45 that are right on that beta clearance level cusp. And I feel fine. I felt fine my first game with people like that, and I felt fine second, third, fourth game like that. So I don't see, at least in that alpha, lower beta clearance levels, I don't see a problem with that. I've been happy to see that my thoughts are being shown at least at that level of XP to be true or close to true. But there's Torganized Play. If you don't have a game master, if you don't have a group, and you want to play or game master Torg Eternity, visit Torganized Play. We're happy to get more people involved. Right now, there's a few games every week. You might not be able to fit everything, but you can choose a couple. I had one last week. I had one this week. I'm going to have another one next week. It was probably before December the last time I played in it, just because I didn't have time, but I jump in, I meet new people. Some of the people are the same, but they have new characters. Some are the same characters. It's interesting. It is kind of more like a Storm Knight under the Delphi Council, and not necessarily groups, the same group going around, but it's more like you've been chosen to go here, even if it might not exactly make sense. But it's something very, very enjoyable, and if you don't have the group, the game master, the players, or you just want to do something different on the side. I game master 2 groups every other week, a Friday and Sunday game, but I want to play, but none of my players want to do or can do an extra night of gaming. So I use Torganized Play to scratch that itch, and it's been doing really well. I'm very, very happy with it. Like I said, a few rules they've changed or altered, which is fine, in my opinion. So, Torg Eternity, great system. I love it. I hope my last video did not seem like I was ripping on Torg Eternity or saying that old Torg was better. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that at the core they're the same. All the additions make them different enough to be separate games. You might need to choose which one appeals to you more, and that's fine. Some people might love old Torg and hate Torg Eternity. Some people might think old Torg was clunky and it had too many subsystems, and the streamlining of Torg Eternity is a vast improvement. That's fine. Some people like me might be looking at both and going, I like both, and I can't decide which I like better, so I'll stick with this and think about how I can work things. And then if they work, they work. If they don't work, then you can throw them out or say that now they're optional and I don't want to deal with it anymore. But Torg is a great system either way, original or Eternity or using Infiniverse Exchange products to change Torg to make it your own. If you are interested in a multi-genre system that works and works well, where you can have a person who is like a sci-fi Jedi Knight with a wizard from D&D that is with an action hero from the normal Earth action heroes like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sly Stallone, that type, to a gothic horror Sherlock Holmes type person. All of those can fit in nicely, go on adventures together. All of them feel like they contribute to the game, to the story, to actually succeeding in things, and it works well. The system really works well for those types of games. It's not like the other games that are under some universal rule set that if you play it in this genre, it's good. If you play it in this genre, it's good. But if you have a character from this genre and this genre and they try to interact, then things start breaking apart. It's not like that at all, which is good. And that's for original and for Torg Eternity. I think that West End Games and now Ulysses Spiel has done a very excellent job of making it so those multi-genre characters work well together. You can be a spellcaster, and one from Isle works just as well as somebody from the Nile Empire, or somebody from Orosh, or somebody from another realm that actually has magic. So Living Land, Magic 1, you're not doing anything here. But it's one of those things where it's a great system if you want that multi-genre feel that everybody can do something. Make Torg your own. There's lots of resources, both official and fan base, that aren't just, oh, it's some guy in his basement coming up with stuff. Well, you can look at it, and they're usually cheap. They're usually not very expensive on Drive-Thru RPG. You can get it, take a look at it, and determine if you want anything out of it or not. So there's good fan base stuff out there. There's good official stuff out there. There is on Drive-Thru RPG the whole 5-year pretty much, besides one or two things, the whole product line of original Torg. So if you don't want to have to wait for stuff and you just want to jump into Torg as a system and have everything available that's able to be available, you can do that as well on RPG, Drive-Thru RPG. It's also RPG.now. They used to be separate entities, and then they combined. So there's lots of choices with Torg, with original Torg, with Torg Eternity, with alternate cosms, with alternate rules, with alternate this and that, additional this and that. There's just lots and lots of good stuff out there. It's a system that I highly recommend. It's been my #1 system for probably around the last 28 years. And again, my mind changes a lot, the systems I consider #1. But Torg's always been tied with #1. So if there's ever other #1s at any moment in my life, Torg is always up there as, it's Torg and another system at #1. I can't say that it's always only been Torg, but Torg has always been at least tied as the #1 system that Lehman Crafton Jr. loves most of all. I hope through my reviews you understand more of Torg the original and Torg Eternity, that you are able to make Torg your own if you're a game master and or a player. There's lots of alternatives. You don't have to go with what's official. If you want to, fine, great, go with what's official, but it is canon if you don't. And I keep saying that because there's so many games that people are like, what's canon, what's canon, what's canon? And people are like, oh, you can do this, but if you don't, like this, you can do it. And they're like, no, what's canon, what's canon? They want to know what canon is. And it seems like they're afraid to make the game their own for whatever reason. Maybe they have lack of self-confidence. They figure that the game company knows best. But Torg Eternity presents that as canon. Your group is canon, even if it's completely different from what is official. So having said that, 18, 19 times each video, and then probably double that this video, I will go ahead and I will stop. Again, in the future, I will release an Aurora and Pan Pacifica updates, reviews when those come out. But my next review will probably be a discussion on the new game that I will be running, maybe within a month and a half, 2 months. Probably before or at March is what I probably am guessing. So I'll be talking about that, and I'll do a review off the system that I'm basing that off of. So if you want more Torg stuff, if you want me to get into Torg stuff, please feel free to leave a comment. Like if you like it, dislike if you dislike it, subscribe if you want to hear more, and tell me what is interesting to you. If you want me to get really in detail on a specific realm or a specific type of mechanic, or my ideas on stuff, let me know and I can do videos on those. But for Torg as Torg Eternity and Torg as a whole, as general concepts, I've spent lots and lots of videos explaining everything that I think I needed to explain. I thank you if you watch all of these. I see every day about the same number of views, so I'm pretty happy at that. Hopefully we'll grow and get to be a community that can talk about Torg and other games. I don't want to be a channel that focuses on one game system, but since I do know a lot about Torg and I am in an official capacity a freelance author, I figured I would dig deep into the system that I love most, or tied to most. So, having said that, I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorvalachan, and I will catch you later.